So this is the sixth installment in the long-running Final Destination series, which originally started in 2000 and ran through 2011 with 5 films. Like I said earlier, they were mid-budget, $20 to $40 million films that went on very successfully, became cult classics among the horror genre as well. They took a hiatus for the last 14 years. We haven't had one. I'm not sure why, because like I said, they were all very successful. So in Final Destination 6 or Final Destination Bloodlines, we meet Iris in the 1960s, who she's young, she's in love, she goes to this big kind of Seattle Sky Needle type restaurant. It is specifically not the Seattle Sky Needle, but it's
The Sky
adjacent to
View.
that.
Yeah, the
Yes.
Sky View is what it's called. Yes.
Yeah, and all these movies kind of have the same pattern, but it works like a charm. Iris sees a premonition of this disaster at the Skyview restaurant and hotel, that the floor breaking, people falling out, dying, people on fire, elevator not working, all these things. She tells everyone, "You got to get off the dance floor. You got to clear out of here," and she saves dozens of lives by doing this. But death will not be cheated, and death always has a plan to kind of come after people if you kind of slip its grasp. So we actually jump forward 50 years to Stephanie, who is Iris's granddaughter, who is having this same premonition back from the 60s, and she doesn't know why. She's struggling at school. She's struggling with her family. She's kind of become the black sheep. And she was like, I need to talk to someone about this. And someone says, hey, Grandma Iris kind of had some of this. She was a little weird. She kind of broke up the family, but you might talk to her. And so she does, and that's where she discovers all the lore about the premonition, cheating, death, all the staples of the Final Destination, which of course we've come to love: the kills, the murders, the avoiding death, the trying to figure out who's next in line, all that fun stuff. So Zach, what do you think?
I have seen one of the Final Destination movies. I didn't see 2, 3, 4, 5. I've seen the first one, and I've seen a bunch of clips from the other ones. That being said, this movie's a lot of fun. I really liked it. It's really good. I had a great time with it. It's got problems, for sure. The cast is real lean. There's not anybody really notable in it outside of Tony Todd. The animation's clunky, dog. There's some clunky animation in this movie, but it is delightfully fun watching these like Rube Goldberg machinations like turn into death machines unexpectedly. Like a hapless lawnmower may be a part of a device that ends up frying somebody, or God knows what. I love the marketing for Final Destination Bloodlines. They gave us like 2 kill scenarios basically. Like in one is like a tattoo parlor scene where a guy gets like hooked and his chain pulls him up, and the other is like this party scene with this piece of glass and that goes into ice. It goes into a cup, and all of that is so much fun, and it works so good in these movies. And Final Destination Bloodlines manages to execute that really well because the people behind it have a lot of talent and are informed by modern horror films and like are taking their time and being really patient. And it ends up working really well. Like it's a super fun time at the movies. Like great popcorn flick. I had a great time watching it. Let's talk about it.
Right. So I think we'll start with plot, because all of these are plotted the same. In the first one, there's always a big disaster at the beginning, which is avoided. In the first one, it's famously a plane. In the second one is the arguably more famous big highway scene where like the log truck, the log coming off the log truck, which I think everyone has seen, even if you've never seen the movie. The third one is a roller coaster disaster. The fourth, raceway thing. In five is a bridge collapse. So they all start like that. There's a premonition. There's one person who can kind of see what's happening. Everyone is skeptical. No one believes them. There's a few deaths, and everyone's like, okay, I guess you do know what you're talking about. How do we outsmart death? How do we survive this? It is paint by number, and that's, in that sense, it's very formulaic, but man, is it a formula that works.
Well, that's just the thing. Like the fun of Final Destination Bloodlines, at least half of it, is misleading you into something you would think would be formulaic. Like our opening's a great example. Like we see all of this tragedy happen, and then when this woman's having these nightmares and she's talking to her family about it, they're like, well, you should talk to Grandma Iris. And she's like, I thought Grandma Iris is dead. And they're like, oh no, she went crazy. She's alive. And then you're sitting in your seat like, what do you mean? Wait a second. And this movie does this a couple of times. They set up a couple of clever, like, here's where you think it's headed. And then surprise, this totally did not go the way you thought it was going to go, which is delightful. Like, and keeps you guessing. Because you think, being the 6th entry here, you're going to know kind of how it goes. You're going to expect like A to B to C. it's very clever to not just follow that. It's very clever to move in a different direction and kind of dance to a different beat, which works great. I love the opening sequence in this. The Skyview sequence is probably the best. It is so fun and so frenetic and so kinetic, and like there's this great like dance number in the middle of it with shout wherever, like it just like builds up to this rhythm, and you get all of these exacting sequences of just little things happening. A penny rolls down a thing and hits an air vent, or somebody turns the gas just a little too high on this grill, and you see all of these things starting to come together, all these puzzle pieces starting to click into place, and then in like one wonderful magic trick of a sequence, everything just goes off. A, B, C, D, E, bing, bang, boom. 90 people get fried. Like, it's so much fun. It's such a delight to watch these things. And Destinations, Bloodlines is uniquely funny in a way that I don't know if the rest of the series is. Like, it manages to be self-aware and know what we're watching is totally bogus. And it invites you into that laugh. Like, you're not just watching horror, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, it's usually kind of a laugh in a way. There's some kind of, I don't know, hubris to it that manages to be encouraging when you're sitting in a theater, like watching popcorn, eating in the dark.
Yeah, that was something I was going to comment on. Is the comedy is back, and it takes a little bit to show up. And because I was like, I remember these movies actually being funnier throughout. In the first one, Sean William Scott is in it, who's the comedic. He's the guy from American
Stifler.
Pie. So
Yeah.
yeah, so he's the comedic relief, and they all have a little bit of that comedy, dark comedy, because there's inevitably a character who doesn't believe in any of this. He's like, no, I don't believe in this curse. No, I don't believe death is chasing us. Whatever, and he's
Yeah.
hubristic and inevitably is killed also. But yeah, it's really funny. We have one standout character. Well, one of the brother characters is so funny, like just is scene stealing with a lot of really good humor. One of the things that this movie does not quite as well as some of the others, particularly the first, is it just teases at what's going to happen at the big barbecue cookout that we've seen. There's so many things that could go wrong. We see that there's a piece of glass in the ice bin. We see that there's a sharp rake under the trampoline. We see a beer bottle on the edge. We see the propane tank that's starting to leak, and you don't know exactly what's going to go wrong. You're being pulled this way and that. So it does a pretty good job of keeping up tension throughout all the scenes and keep you guessing. And that's one of the things it's famous for, is like it doesn't really want you to see it coming.
No. Breakout performances, you're right, include Richard Harmon as Eric, kind of this odd cousin character. He's awesome. You're right. He steals every scene he's in. Tony Todd is really great in here. I am not super familiar with the series, but I know a lot of fans of it hold him very near and dear. He's great in this. He gets a really great send-off. It's really nice. Film ends with an in memory of, like, really sweet. I like how sincere it feels. And also notable, I don't feel like I had to go in knowing the homework. I didn't feel like watching this I was missing a bunch of in-jokes. I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I should have seen the last 4 Final Destination movies because I don't know what's going on. None of that's necessary. In fact, it would have been easy for Final Destination Bloodlines to just lead back into a previous entry with the Bloodline theme. Oh, we're family, or oh, it's my long-lost cousin who's a character from the previous something. If it does that, I missed it. Like, it seems very clean and very segmented. That's perfect for new fans. Like, very easy to get into, solid new entry. Even Destination, like, former Final Destination fans that I know have all said this is a really solid one of the bunch.
Yeah, it completely avoids doing that, like winking at the audience. There are some very subtle Easter eggs and references to the previous films, but it's nothing that a lot of it's blink and you'll miss it, and a lot of it, if you haven't seen it, it doesn't affect the plot at all. Did want to talk about Tony Todd just briefly. He did pass away a few months ago from cancer, and he was kind of the same. He was basically played the same character in all the films, where he's the one that you go to at the end of Act 2 for answers, and he's creepy and has really good scene chewing dialogue and helps guide the characters along. Played that role for 25 years, so it is great to see him in this. I also wanted to shout out our main character, because I didn't know who the main character was from the trailer. Is character named Stephanie, played by Kaitlyn Santa Juana, who is like dollar store Jenna Ortega. Like, she kind of looks like Jenna Ortega, and she's fine. She's not a bad actress.
Yeah,
but
no, she's good.
They clearly wanted Jenna Ortega, and she decided to do Death of a Unicorn instead, or something else. But it feels like that role was probably for her. But it's almost better that there's no stars, because then you don't know who is and isn't going to survive.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not all good. There are a few things that are clunky about Final Destination Bloodlines. Its cast, which you're right, is a double-sided coin. Like, on the one hand, you don't really have anybody with big talent holding this thing down. Everybody's just pretty good, and you get some standouts, which is fine. But on the other hand, the other side of that coin, like, you're not super concerned about any one of them, right? Like, so if somebody gets fried in horrible fashion, you're like, well, like it makes them, like... I hate to say the word replaceable, but yeah, like these are characters that you're not too concerned about. Like typically, they're going to be people they're in a Final Destination movie, for God's sake. Like you know it's probably going to end horribly for half of them, which is fine. The other thing is the animation. The Skyview sequence in the open has a lot of sky shots of like this needle, space needle thing, and it's super fake and it looks real bad, and it's a clunky way to open the movie. But once it gets going, you realize it's probably one of the better sequences in the movie. And reminds us of the third thing that I thought was a little clunky. Dude, I think Final Destination could use a new setting. And somebody will watch this and say, well, you haven't seen the other ones. How could you say that? But like, dude, it works so good in that 60s sequence. There's absolutely no reason we need to keep these movies grounded in modern time. Like you could do Final Destination in the past. You could do Final Destination on a cruise ship, Final Destination space, Final Destination in the old times, in the future. Like whenever you want, like this formula seems to work really good. And like the people who worked on this movie executed really well on it. Like it's a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of Blumhouse horrors that could learn a thing or two from like what Final Destination is doing here.
I remember thinking that the opening sequence was going to be a little underwhelming, I guess, because it shows a lot in the trailer, but I was actually really surprised because it's pretty long, and it's not just people falling through the floor. Like there's lots of deaths that happen in other ways, so it actually keeps it pretty fresh. And that opening sequence is actually pretty long because there's some storytelling going on there as well with Iris and her boyfriend who are in love, and she's pregnant, and it's going to be a whole beautiful moment until it's not. But yeah, you could do so much with this. Yeah, you could do Final Destination Origins and go back to like medieval Europe or something.
Yeah. You can do anything, dude. Like it's crazy. Like lots of room for this series to run. I don't think it's particularly tied to any kind of origin. Like this film is evidence that like you do not have to call back to nearly any of these movies for it to work. Like it's crazy how good the formula works for Final Destination Bloodlines. Like other series are trapped by an antagonist, right? A Jigsaw movie's got to have Jigsaw, or a Saw movie's got to have Jigsaw in it. A Nightmare on Elm Street movie has to have Freddy in it. Final Destination does not require any of that. Like they are not bound by any of these particular rules of other films. Like I'm so pleased to have watched this and be like, actually, this is a banger. This is a really good time. Huge W for Final Destination fans, I think. Like the series is only headed in good directions. Any other thoughts or recommendations?
I just wanted to real quick say Christopher McQuarrie, who's the director of Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, was recently talking about fan service, and he said this thing that he was like, that's really hurtful to do in a film. It takes the audience out. People, if you don't know what's going on, you're like, why is this here? And so Final Destination Bloodlines has made the very smart decision, as we were saying, to not do a bunch of callbacks, a bunch of like winking at the audience, but it doesn't feel like homework, and it's been 15 years, and so it was a smart decision to make.
Yeah, I was just rewatching an old Red Letter Media review of Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, and they were praising how inventive it was to make a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark that is not just a direct sequel and here's all the characters and like trot out the same tropes. It's completely different. Temple of Doom is totally its own thing, and while it wasn't well received at the time, like at least they had the gusto to make something different and new and fresh, and I think Final Destination Bloodlines lands in that space. Like thank God it's not just doing the same thing as the previous ones. Thank God it's inventing in a different direction. Like it's embracing cinematic language. A small detail I forgot to mention. Really love that a lot of the conversation scenes in Final Destination Bloodlines are handheld. It keeps it kinetic, keeps the energy, keeps it moving. But when it cuts to any one of those death shots where like a piece of twine is getting pulled taut or like a flame lights up on a grill, lockdown tripod. Love it. Death is exacting. Humans are messy. Final Destination Bloodlines. Andy, any other thoughts or recommendations?
I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Final Destination Bloodlines?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially to horror fans, it's a great new entry into the series. It's fun, it's unique, it's doing a lot of new things, it's updated. We got some humor, we got some gross out stuff, a lot of body horror, good performances from our relatively unknown cast, and of course the great Tony Todd. So highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. This is super fun. You don't need to have a lot of knowledge of the series to enjoy it. I didn't, and I had a great time. This will be one of those horror movies when people are like, God, a lot of horror starting at the same area. I'm like, Bloodline's pretty good, though. It's not a bad entry. Like, I think it's real solid. I need to go back and watch Final Destination 2 and 3. I think those are usually the ones that people say. 1, 2, and 3 are solid. 4 and 5, kind of sleepers. Bloodline's solid. I think it's good. Yeah, people are putting in their letterbox reviews. Anyway, we got to get to our next segment of the podcast. Bit of different something this week, all right? Because we got a big film festival going on, so we're going to cover that. Then we'll get to some trailers. Then we'll talk about Last Breath. Andy, what do we call this segment?
Actually, what do we
I know we
call
didn't
this
actually like cook
segment?
up a name, but it's fine. You know,